It's story time. The King and the Spider. Vikram was a brave king. One day he had to fight against a large army with just a few soldiers, and he was defeated. He lost his kingdom. He had to run for his life, so he took a shelter in a forest cave. He was very depressed, and his courage had left him. He was blankly gazing at the ceiling of the cave. In a moment, an interesting scene captured his attention. A small spider was trying to weave a web across the cave ceiling. As the spider crawled up, a thread of the web broke and the spider fell down. But the spider did not give up. He tried to climb again and again and again. Finally, the spider successfully climbed up and completed the web. He began to think. If a small spider can face failure so bravely, why should I give up? I will try again and again until I win. This thought gave strength to the defeated king. Vikram got out of the jungle and collected his brave soldiers. He fought against the large army. After many attempts, the king defeated the large army and reclaimed his kingdom. He had learned that lesson from the little spider from the cave. Moral of the story: perseverance is the only way to success. To support us, please subscribe to Storytime. It's story time. Who is happy? The peacock and the crow. A crow lived in the forest and was absolutely satisfied in life. But one day he saw a swan. This swan is so white, he thought, and I am so black. This one must be the happiest bird in the world. He expressed his thought to the swan. Actually, the swan replied, I was feeling that I was the happiest bird around until I saw a parrot, which has two colors. I now think the parrot is the happiest bird in creation. The crow then approached the parrot. The parrot explained, I lived a very happy life until I saw a peacock. I have only two colors, but the peacock has multiple colors. The crow then visited a peacock in the zoo and saw that hundreds of people had gathered to see him. After the people had left, the crow approached the peacock. Dear peacock, the crow said, you are so beautiful. Every day, thousands of people come to see you. When people see me, they immediately shoo me away. I think you are the happiest bird on the planet. The peacock replied, I always thought that I was the most beautiful and happy bird on the planet. But because of my beauty, I am entrapped in the zoo. I have examined the zoo very carefully and I have realized that the crow is the only bird not kept in a cage. So, for the past few days, I have been thinking that if I were a crow, I would happily roam everywhere. Moral of the story: person who is satisfied with what she has is the happiest person in the world. To support us, please subscribe to Storytime. It's story time. Hard work always pays. Once there lived two friends called Barry and Gary. They were very good friends and did everything together. One day, they came to the city with the goal to earn money. They have heard about a very wealthy merchant and went to him looking for a job. The merchant gave each of them a cane basket. Then he pointed towards a well in his garden, saying, "Take these baskets and draw water from the well till dusk. That is your job." At that moment, Barry thought the idea to draw water in a cane basket was foolish, so he went to sleep. On the other hand, Gary took the basket and started working. After a few hours, when he drew the basket up, he saw some gold coins in the basket. He took the gold to the merchant. The merchant rewarded him and gave him a job too. Barry was stunned with what had happened, and he went away ashamed. To support us, please subscribe to Storytime. It's story time. The Ugly Duckling. This is the amazing story of a small duckling whom everyone thought he'd be ugly before he grew up to be something else. Away back on an old farm lived Mother Duck. She waited patiently day and night for her babies to hatch. One day, the eggs hatched and popped out 6 chirpy ducklings. But one egg was bigger and browner than the rest, and it didn't hatch. Mother Duck was confused. Did I count the eggs wrongly? I know I had 6 eggs. And in that moment, the last egg hatched. A strange-looking duckling with gray feathers that should have been yellow came out of the egg, staring at a worried mother. "I don't understand how this ugly duckling can be one of mine," said the worried Mother Duck, shaking her head. The gray duckling certainly wasn't pretty, but he was eating far more than his brothers and he was outgrowing them. As the days passed by, the poor ugly duckling became more unhappy. For starters, his brothers didn't want to play with him and all the farmyard folks laughed at him because he was very clumsy. "My poor little ugly duckling, why are you so different from the others?" said his mother, and the ugly duckling felt worse than ever. He was so sad that he secretly wept at night, thinking, "Why am I different from my brothers? Nobody loves me. They all tease me." One day, he decided to run away from the farmyard. He wanted to ask other animals questions he couldn't understand himself. At the pond, he saw other birds and asked them, "Do you know of any ducklings with gray feathers like mine?" "We don't know anyone as ugly as you," answered the birds. Determined to find out the truth, he went to another pond where a pair of large geese gave him the same answer to his question. Traveling for days, he got himself near an old country farm. The farmer and his wife allowed the ugly duckling to live with them in hopes that the duckling would lay eggs for them to eat. But the ugly duckling laid not a single egg. Though the farmer and his wife had grown fond of the ugly duckling, they had no more room for him in their house. As he shut the door, he said through sadness, "Go find yourself a family that will love you." The ugly duckling hung his head and waddled far away from the farmer's house. Winter came, and the water in the reed bed froze. The duckling waddled over frozen bundles of sticks and frozen piles of dung. Even if all this waddling made him colder than ever, miraculously he survived the cold winter. With spring, all of the frozen ponds melted, and as he approached a crystal clear pond, he saw a family of the most beautiful birds he had ever seen, swans. He wished so much to join them, but he didn't even dare to ask them, for he knew he was surely too ugly to live with these beautiful birds. Unexpectedly, a swan gracefully glided through the water over to where the ugly duckling was sitting. My, your feathers are the finest I've ever seen. How they gleam in the sun!" the swan exclaimed to the ugly duckling. Confused, the ugly duckling wandered to the water and peered at his reflection. "Goodness, how I've changed! I hardly recognize myself." Much to his surprise, he was not an ugly duckling, for he was not a duck at all. He was a beautiful white swan with a long and elegant neck. He entered the water and joined his new family. One day, he heard children on the riverbank shouting, "Look at that young swan! He is the most beautiful swan I've ever seen." He was filled with so much joy and happiness that he almost burst. To support us, please subscribe to Storytime.